here we are with one of the gifts that keeps on giving. Times Radio. I do like them. This is called Pro-Palestinian Protests Are Not Peace Marches. 60,000 protest against anti-Semitism in London. So let's say I'm Johnny Vedmore. This is NEWSPASTY, and these people have pasties for eyes. Listen to it. Pro-Palestinian protests are not peace march. Pro-Palestinian, no. I think it was anti-occupation, anti-war demonstrators. They're not peace marches. I mean, what the other side is the right wing. It's so complicated to understand who everybody is trying to be painted as nowadays by the mainstream media, especially the worst of the mainstream media. And the worst are people like GB News at the moment, Times Radio, and many of the other ones who are emerging in the digital infrastructure as being leading news platforms that are being pushed out there all the time. And here we go. We're going to look at some kooky guys today. Yeah, if anybody remembers the Corbyn protests, knows that if you actually watched any of the interviews with the protesters, they were often they just did not get logical. They were out there because they couldn't understand that they were working upon fallacies. So they project out a lot of fallacies. I think that's the best way to put it. Everybody knows I love a fallacy or two. Let's go and check out in this episode of NEWSPASTY.
I'd be really grateful if someone could explain to me what far right is now, because it looks as if anyone who takes a view that is sort of maybe not left of centre is far right.
Now, it sounds like they're defending the Palestinian marches being called far right, but it's not. They're actually criticising. They're on the other side. But he can't even speak and think about how to say things because he knows that he has to do it in a way that doesn't make him a hypocrite. And the problem is that all of this is relative arguments. So there's a load of scope for hypocrisy in abundance.
I've come down today just to offer support to the Jewish community. I just felt that they needed a voice as well. There's an awful lot of hate out there in the world today. And obviously, you know, the pro-Palestinian protests, which I kind of agree with as well, but nobody's speaking out for the Jewish community.
I think there are lots of people speaking out for the Jewish community, and this whole thing, when you're watching everybody on the news constantly talking in and giving airtime to the Israeli Defense Force, not Israelis, not Jews, mainly just the IDF. That's what they're doing. They're not presenting the regular Jew on the street. The majority of the time, what they're doing is representing the IDF. And then what do you expect to happen apart from it to be like no one standing up for the Jewish community? That is standing up for the Jewish community. The fact that they literally get to have the narrative. Now they've run with the narrative, and they've fallen with the narrative, and the narrative's splashed all over the place, and there's over 10,000 dead people in Gaza who know that narrative is balls. No, it's balls.
Nobody's speaking up for the Jewish community.
Almost 2 months ago, the worst atrocity against the Jewish people was perpetrated by Hamas in southern Israel. And the reaction to that, even before Israel began its military response, was a massive outbreak in anti-Semitism here and all around the world.
But what they're defining as anti-Semitism here is people who aren't shocked by the fact that there was such violence. What they're talking about is people who are saying it happens and they go, look how terrible it is. And they're like, well, you killed that many Palestinians in no time whatsoever, haven't you? And you do it all the time. And you're committing like war crimes, and it's an apartheid regime and all of this stuff. And then they're like, you won't listen to us and say that we're the best and that they're awful and this shouldn't have happened. Well, it shouldn't have happened, but it's being caused by something, isn't it? It's a reaction. The terrorist actions by Hamas and Hamas itself are a reaction to what? What are they a reaction to? They're not just an action in itself. They've not come out of nowhere. It's not like October the 7th came out of nowhere. It's not like Hamas came out of nowhere. They came out of resistance. They came out of people being subjugated in an apartheid regime, being treated really unfairly. So it's not a surprise at all. And that's what's considered anti-Semitism now, is that if you're not surprised when Jewish people in Israel get attacked in some way because their governments and the people in charge of their country have been subjugating people for 75 years, and the whole country is built upon systematic genocide and subjugation. I mean, that's what you don't start going into a land you haven't lived in for 1,500, 2,000 years, however long, not properly, that you've had to have a great migration from being pushed out of. You don't go back there all of a sudden and say, okay, we're starting again, without it be pushing out the other people and systematically taking their land and systematically exterminating them. Yes, genocide. So it's been going on for ages. So this is just a reaction. This is a reaction. And what is considered anti-Semitism now is not being surprised by there being a reaction to atrocity.
And that's been characterized,
and that reaction to look like atrocity.
Things. We've seen it over 7 weekends of marches that say they are marches for peace, but at the same time they are calling for jihad and for the intifada to be globalized.
Listen, if it was that bad, what is happening right here? A load of people peacefully standing around, not being attacked, not being shouted at, not being abused, who are all able to protest and etc. They just don't have the numbers because they're the minority. Not only the Jewish minority, but the people who support what Israel are currently doing. Because these people are saying we're supporting Jewish people. They're not. Are they supporting Netanyahu and the IDF? Because that's all we're seeing on the TV screen, isn't it? That's all we're being pushed out. We're not hearing the words of Jewish people. We're hearing the words of the army. So are these people here supporting Jewish people? They're supporting the army? Are they against anti-Semitism? Do they just turn out whenever there's a thing against anti-Semitism?
The years I've lived here, which is all my life, I've never felt uncomfortable like I do now. And that's...
Yeah, but is he uncomfortable because there's events happening elsewhere that you relate to, and you make that flag we see on the screen there undetachable from those actions, you know, and then all of the TV, all of the hatred that comes back from there being war, you take on board as being personal. That's crazy. That's crazy. That is what I think a lot of this is like, oh, they're marching against the war in Palestine. That means they hate Jews. That's what they're equating it. And it just does not work. It's really, really simplistic thinking that isn't true.
Sad, really sad. That's why I'm here today, because we're gathering together as one people, because Jews all over the world are just one great big family.
What are your thoughts on the pro-Palestinian?
Oh, my Lord. Jews all around the world are one great big family. Yeah, Canaanite family. Well done. You're Canaanites. That's what you are. You're Canaanite family. Do you know who else is in the Canaanite family? Oh, the Palestinian people. You're both 50% plus Canaanite genetically. It's just bloody ridiculous. We're all one big family. No, you choose to be a social cult. Or you don't choose to be a social cult. Because that's if you're in something that restricts your interaction within the wider world, then you've got to say, is that positive for me? Is that negative for me? Is that positive for the people I live around? Is that negative for the people I live around? Because at the moment, you can't turn around and say, that Jewish is all one thing, that Islam is all one thing, Christianity is all one thing. All of these different things that are then detached from states, detached from other things.
Protests that have been taking place every Saturday.
I agree with everything. I agree that the children and all the people, the innocent people in Palestine, should not be targeted.
But they are being.
Unfortunately, it's a war situation and innocent people do die.
But it doesn't need to be a war situation. So who's the aggressor? That's the problem, is who's been blockading and barricading and treating it like a war situation for years since they created Hamas themselves by proxy to counteract the socialist Palestinian organizations.
But there's a lot of hatred that goes with it, and I think that's not necessary. The hatred
What do you mean by
towards normal
Go
Jewish
on,
people
explain.
that comes out of that.
It's quite like a broad assumption for everyone.
Yeah, there's not they say the hate against the Jewish people that comes out from that. But is what I'm saying now hate? Do they class that? What are they classing as hate? They're classing the fact that the IDF are murderous. Are they trying to just like, are they doing the same thing as I've seen over and over again, painting the river to the sea comments as something that isn't just a chant that states, you know, all of the occupied territory needs to be freed up and stop being occupied. And then, you know, you're arguing against that. Then what are you arguing against? You're arguing for occupation. You're arguing for being an occupying force, for ruling another people, subjugating another people, ethnically cleansing them, pushing them out through forms of genocide, which is in part or whole destruction of a people.
Do you think would you say that everyone at these marches is like that?
No, possibly not, but I would say...
No, possibly not. Which one is it? No, possibly not. You know, you've got a choice. Do you think everybody at these marches are racist? Your possibilities are no, possibly not, yes. What are you going to go with? No, possibly not. But I guess where it's going next.
I would feel very humiliated going up to London, and it has put me off a little bit coming up to London. This is my first time
humiliated.
Since all of this.
Oh, really?
I haven't been on any of the other marches.
I just think that a group like the Socialist Worker that openly support terrorism with the small
this guy's a legend. Look at him.
Support Hamas's ideas on LGBT rights and women, but they have no problem with the massacre of Israelis. So I'm like, if you're holding a stand from
who doesn't have a problem? Socialist workers. He's saying that the people from the Socialist Worker don't have any problem with the massacre of Israelis. That's just insane. What he's doing there is smearing an entire people. So he starts off, the first thing he says is the Socialist Workers smear. They don't mind Israelis being murdered. That's just not true. There's so much nuance in there, and they always take it to the extremes. This guy's a legend, you can tell.
Every protest, hundreds of thousands of people are, you are inadvertently advertising an anti-Semitic organization that proudly supports Hamas.
It's
100%. This guy is just his face there is brilliant. Well, who's just said the word that makes him ejaculate? Look, he's got his stickers in his hand. He's giving them out. He's got one on him, isn't he? He likes his stickers. And there's a lot of there is a lot of hatred around, but it's not really here, is it? And yeah, I find it amazing.
Proudly supports Hamas.
It's a damning indication of the current education that kids are getting is they have no clue what they're talking about. They bandy the word fascism around, and when actually asked about it, to maybe debate
go on.
they have no clue.
This guy also, you know that if you talk to this guy and you ask him to define something like fascism, that he wouldn't have a clue, that he would say a load of stuff, but it would be gibberish and he wouldn't even be able to say it properly because he ain't got a clue about nothing. I mean, this is just obvious.
You don't know what fascism is.
What examples do you mean by that?
What example?
Things like that if you take an opposing view
opposing view.
The current marches that have been happening on the Saturdays, well, obviously you're a fascist, aren't you? So, look, goodness me, aren't we all fascists? Look at it.
But fascists stood peacefully as well as fascists standing like thing. What does that mean? What, you're supporting fascism? What, are you supporting a state that is systematically eradicating another state, ruling it, killing its people, creating genocide, apartheid, all of those different things. Yes. Okay. What's fascism? I can't define it. I can't define what does it mean though? What does it actually mean? What's it the combination of? Come on, the state, education systems, and other things that merge together. And what else? Oh, corporations, the state, and education merging together to rule in an authoritarian manner. Something along those lines. You know, there's loads of different branches of fascism.
It's all here on a fascist gathering. No.
Yes. No, it is.
Fascist would be, I don't know, Mussolini maybe?
Oh, there you go. He doesn't know what a fascist is. He's going to say Mussolini, maybe. No, that's one form of fascism. You don't know what you're talking about. The whole point of what you were saying was that if you talk to these people nowadays, they don't know what they're talking about. Go on.
I think a lot of people in this
Oh,
country
no. I can't. Wait a minute. Let's go back.
Education that kids are getting is they have no clue what they're talking about. They bandy the word fascism around.
He's bandying the word fascism around, and when asked to describe what fascism is, he hasn't got a clue, and he ends up saying like, fascism is like Mussolini, isn't it? Like he bandied the word about. He doesn't realise that he's supporting a fascist regime, because that's what the Israeli apartheid regime, the top echelon, doesn't mean. Again, it would be a fallacy for me to paint all Israelis as fascists, like it would be if I was in 1930s or 1940s to paint every German as fascist. They ruled by a fascist government. A load of them weren't fascist and don't have that ideology with them, were subjugated and tortured, were pushed out, were ethnically cleansed, were genocided. You know,
actually asked about it to maybe debate that. They have no clue. They don't know what fascism is.
What examples do you mean by that?
It's kind of things like
fascism equals Mussolini.
An opposing view to the current marches that have been happening on the Saturdays. Well, obviously you're a fascist, aren't you? So look, goodness me, aren't we all fascists? Look at us all here on a fascist gathering. No.
Fascist
would be, I don't know, Mussolini maybe?
That's the best you can do. Mussolini maybe? That's what it is, a fascist. So what does that mean? Italian, I suppose. And hung from the neck, and would make the trains run on time. That's all I know about fascism. I don't know anything about fascism. The fact is, he's right to an extent. The word fascist and fascism in general is bandied about by one side of the argument, saying, you're a bunch of fascists. And then the other side always says, you're a bunch of fascists. Because most people don't know what these things actually mean and don't use a semantical definition, a strict semantics when it comes to this sort of thing. Fascism is now an insult that is broader in term than what it originally was, a broader term than what it originally was, and what the definition originally was, of course, because that's how it works. It's the adapting of a word inside society that has got negative connotations from something else and then gains other connotations elsewhere. If you want to see a state combining with corporations, then really looking at the IDF and Unit 8200 and how they're creating loads of cyber corporations, and they're linked in with the state and the education system, and that looks fascist to me. The whole thing looks fascist. The whole thing. Israeli state looks fascist. Does not mean Israelis are fascist. Does not mean you're a fascist. This guy doesn't think he's a fascist, but if you're standing behind a fascist state and supporting a fascist state, that means you're a supporter of fascism.
I think a lot of people in this country do not understand the Middle East very well and how the Middle East works, and the amount of hatred that they have towards Jews. And it's not because of politics.
Yeah, it's not because of politics. Got nothing to do with politics. The reason why the people in the Middle East don't like Jews is nothing to do with politics. It's not like the political Zionism happened, like political Judaism happened, and took over a large swathe of land in the Middle East. It's got nothing to do with that. No, there's nothing. No, they don't understand.
It's because of religion. They
What's this guy doing?
Jews because they're non-Muslims. I mean, I've got another sign under
wow.
That, but
Is that okay? Just because like the way it says like Arab saying, and it kind of sounds like you're saying that this is what Arabs want, and they want to kill Jews, they want to kill Christians, which isn't true.
Wow. Okay. Right. Look at this. There's these guys. They. If you're at a protest and you're supposed to freely express, oh, this is brilliant. Didn't even see. Look at this. Look at this. Do you see what I'm seeing here? Do you see what I'm seeing here? They're at a protest. Yeah. Freedom of speech and all that. And we all know the connotations of fascism, where you're not allowed freedom of speech anymore. You have to think a certain way, and you have to say things a certain way, and you have to do certain things. And this guy is like in amongst these other guys, he's coming up to this woman and being like, no, you can't have that sign. You can't say that because it sounds like you're saying this. And it's not true. It's not true. Well, it's partially true and it's nuanced. Oh, no, it's not true to the propaganda that we're putting out, because this isn't about free speech. It's not about protest. It's about everybody looking like they're saying the same thing and it being coerced and co-opted. And so what is it? Is this fascistic? Is going up to someone in a protest where they got freedom of speech and telling them that they're not allowed to have the sign? What is that? What is that? So let's watch this. Really interesting. Let's examine this as an interesting bit, because look, there's two things. These two guys are together. So how long today? So they're watching. He's recording. He's got a little dongle here, and he's recording this fat guy with glasses. And he's going to come in, and he's going to try and speak to the cameraman. And he's going to try, and obviously now I realize these two guys are together, and he's trying to stop the cameraman from recording her and her sign because they don't agree with what it says. So what they're doing is trying to stop this woman's freedom of speech, and they target her. So who are these guys working for? Who are these guys working for? Because this is proactive work. This isn't people at a protest. All the other people, look at them. Look at them. They're all just hanging around. This guy's filming, capturing certain people, and watch as he comes up. What's he going to do?
It's not because of politics. It's because
he goes to touch her and goes to say something. He's looking across at someone else. He goes to touch her. That was a really weird move. Like he wanted to stop her, like push her off camera.
Because of politics.
Look at that weird move. And he's being told not to by someone else. Or he's looking at somebody else. Or he's thinking into himself, oh no, I better not do that, because touching a woman on camera would look bad, wouldn't it? And so he's going to then try and talk to the cameraman.
It's because of religion. They just like.
The interview is being given, and this guy has to try and stop the interview happening. He doesn't want this woman's views being expressed at their march because of what she's saying. And this is what fascism looks like. Crowd control, it protests so that everybody, the certain people aren't allowed a voice.
Jews because they're non-Muslims. I mean, I've got another sign under that.
Oh, so he's there saying, yes, yeah, the sign, Arab saying. So the sign says, Arab saying, first we come for Saturdays, Jews, then for the Sundays, Christians. Okay. First, okay, because Saturday is holy day, or Sunday or whatever. Arab saying, first we come for the Jews, then we come for the Christians. Well, there is some extremists that would say that, yeah, but it's just a sign. So what? But they're trying to make it look like they're the peaceful ones, and they're not fascists.
Just because like the way it says like Arab saying, and it kind of sounds like you're saying.
And so now he's controlling her freedom of speech. This is all fascistic. Is this a fascist gathering? Do you coerce what people say? Are you controlling what people say so they all speak in the same voice that is with the state?
This is what Arabs want, and they want to kill Jews, they want to kill Christians, which isn't true.
How do you know? Like,
well, I'm just saying it's
how do you know?
It's not the message of our protest.
I think the lowest point so far.
Exactly. There you go. It's not the message of our protest. What? Our protest. The state's protest. The one, the bog. We must all speak the same and be the same. We are Jews after all. We must all be the same. This is what he's doing. These guys came in. That's amazing from the start. From this guy here trying to come in and stop it. That brilliant. I will fast forward again, but look at this move when they come in together. So he's looking. The one guy, the kid behind, is looking at the sign. It's like, oh, we got to stop that sign, and we got to stop him talking to him. But she's already in an interview, and he goes to touch her.
It's because of religion.
He looked really awkward. They look really awkward about it. Anyway, that's not the thing about it.
They want to kill Jews. They want to kill Christians, which isn't true.
How do you know? Like,
well,
how do you know?
It's not
what?
It's not the message of our protest.
I think the lowest point so far was during the so-called inverted commas peaceful demonstration.
Oh, here comes the guy who's not at a fascist protest, except if you're not holding the sign they want you to hold, then they'll come in, lurch into you like, quick, stop her from saying things. We don't want her speaking without our voice.
Demonstration that took place across the Remembrance weekend. I know that there are groups that are troublemakers. Sadly, there will probably be some here today, no doubt.
No doubt. Oh, that woman with the sign, she's a troublemaker. Did you see her? She's like, they want to kill people over there. Some people do want to kill people over there, and people don't really understand that.
But it's enough now.
Stop saying
There's
that!
got to be balance, right? That's
I guess on Remembrance Day, the majority of the violence on Remembrance Day and the majority of arrests were from the far-right groups that came.
Yeah, we're from the people you say weren't there.
Surrounding the cenotaph and were attacking police officers, rather than actually the pro-Palestinian protesters.
I'd be really grateful if someone could explain to me what far-right is now.
There you go.
It looks as...
So he's ignored. She said, well, it wasn't the pro-Palestinian protesters. They were peaceful. It was the far right that most of the problem come from. Okay, well, I've been proven wrong. I'd be like to know what's far right anymore, because that then leaves me not having to look wrong.
As if anyone who takes a view
Pasty.
that is sort of maybe not left of centre is far right.
Wow. Well, Times Radio never disappoints. Never disappoints. It is really a special place. And I'm just going to leave it with this woman.
It's Jews, and it's not because of politics.
Grab her! Grab her!
Because of religion.
Push her off camera!
They
talk to the camera! Interrupt the interview! Stop her speaking!
Basically, they're non-Muslims. I mean, I've got another sign under that, but I got
another sign. Oh my god. This is what fascism looks like. It's brutal. Brutal.
Well, I'm just saying it's not.
Go on, it's not.
The message of our protest.
It's not the message of our pasty. Oh.